And going to Corona then, this is a weird year for I think everyone, and a lot of companies are struggling to just survive at these times. And we know that the Swedish government, European, American, Chinese, and everyone are going to put a lot of investment now in trying to reboot companies, trying to, for one, make them survive, but perhaps also transform a bit and become more sustainable in some way. What would you suggest or advise people to, for one, that perhaps have a company and are really struggling right now, they want to continue to be sustainable for a long time? How would you advise them from a data and AI point of view to continue?
I think that's a hard one. I think one of the special thing about the Corona crisis and the economic impact is that the companies that we are seeing are struggling are in certain sectors, and it's not through any fault of their own. So it's not that they were doing something bad and that the market is killing them, but it's the virus basically. So it's an external factor. So this is not conditioned by these restaurants and airlines and so on doing things badly. Although they are, but that's a separate. That's not the reason for this. I mean, what we're seeing is an acceleration towards digital or at least claims, I should say. So there's a lot of talk of how fast digitalization is going now post-corona. But my fear is that people think like, we're using Zoom now, so we are super digital.
Yeah. It wasn't the Swedish educational minister that said basically that the 3 years or 3 months of Corona has improved digitalization more than the last 5 years or something. But it's basically using Zoom. That's the thing. Right?
I have a sneaking suspicion that's sort of what people mean. But at the same time, what we're seeing from companies that we're working is that everybody has expressed that digitalization is now priority number one, and we're doing it now. We can't put it off. So it has definitely happened.
So it has really raised the bar of digitalization number one. I fully agree. Well, what we actually done or what we were forced to do had more to do with digitalization around collaboration. That whole space exploded, right? But do we think that they have now actually, that's just the starting point now, and we realize, I mean, we don't have resilience in our processes. Our processes doesn't really work so well when I need to work at home. This manual paper stuff, So I think they see also that, well, we now use Survive by collaboration tools, but in reality, we also understood how vulnerable we are. So maybe that's also a point that from one part of maturity, I guess, is the urgency to act, commit to deploy. The commit to deploy went higher.
Another thing I think that was highlighted that is highly embarrassing is how little AI has done anything in the Corona crisis.
What do you mean? Can you
elaborate on that one? That's a good one.
So it's basically the data isn't there. Talking from the Swedish perspective, so there isn't the data that's required to use the AI or even basic analytics to predict things like how it spreads, where it spreads. Does it spread in schools or not? Simple things like that. And it's a combination of very non-digitalized things and GDPR or unclarity about GDPR. For instance, in the Stockholm region, there were tons of companies, us included, who offered the region the services pro bono, and just like give us data and we'll do something. And they weren't able to because they really couldn't navigate in GDPR. They thought like, we don't know how to anonymize this data. We don't know if we anonymize, if we can give it out and so on. And after sort of lots of talks back and forward, their decision was, we're going to hire a data scientist ourselves. That's like, seriously, that's not going to lead to anything. I'm looking at the world in general. I mean, it's not like we've seen a vaccine being created by AI and
not yet, at least. Right?
Not yet. So this data situation is relatively poor worldwide.
And let me see if I understand it correctly, because we are all a bit marveled, I guess, over how bad the prediction, even human prediction, not necessarily AI predictions all the time, but even human predictions in if it's going to be a second wave or not, or where it's going to spread, and who is going to be hit the most, and what the economical impact will be, and the medical impact and whatnot. Is that what you're referring to a bit? Saying basically that the predictions in general, both human and AI made, are really, really poor, and
yes,
the confidence is close
Although
to zero?
I don't know if anybody has asked GPT-3.
They could have worked.
Too. Yeah, just ask GPT-3 when will Corona end, and it will say.
Well, we will actually have Lars Albertsson as a guest here. I'm not sure if you know Lalle. It's a friend. Yeah. But he basically at the Data Innovation Summit last year, he made a very controversial speech. Mm-hmm. He basically took up a lot of the big COVID models and tore it to pieces in terms of quality and how super inaccurate it was and how piss poor data engineering there was before. So these cannot be trusted, this is shit here. So there is quite a lot of truth here also, that we have sort of seen an explosion of visualizations, which is also dangerous. There's been, and now we're talking Hopkins data, right? We're talking real data, right? That the actual craftsmanship behind it has sent governments in the wrong path in UK, as an example. So there's a lot of interesting stuff here to be explored.
Let me ask a counter question. What is worse, these sort of misleading or inaccurate large-scale models versus Folkhälsomyndigheterna, who uses Excel to do their predictions?
I guess that would be awesome if we could answer that.
I don't know. I can't answer that. Yeah. I don't know what's worse.
But I think it's been like in theory, we have like everything. We have these amazing algorithms. We have the method of collecting data, and this should have been like the great moment of AI. And not really. Not yet anyway. Let's see how long this continues.
And what would you say that the main reasons are potentially? Is it regulation that is a big part of it? Is it lack of knowledge in how to use data and AI? Is it tooling? What would you think? How could AI help more, so to speak, with the Corona situation?
I would say one of the things, one of the scourges of, and this is not just for government, but it's also for larger businesses and so on, is the sort of overstatement of their digitalization readiness, where they do have a digitalization or AI initiative on the sort of fluffy level, and then on the specific level they do a proof of concept, a test, and then they go, oh, we have AI. Look, we're really on track on being super digitals. We have drones. How more digital can you get than drones?
It becomes a huge tick box exercise. Whereas my old CIO in Vattenfall, he always talked about digital sugarcoating, and we always talked about you guys. I was in the business. You like to eat the sugar, yeah, but you never take the cereal. You don't chew it in the real stuff. And I think, isn't that a key factor in itself now? The industry is hyping up what things can do and what things are. Kejsarens nya kläder. I don't know, the emperor's new clothes. The emperor's new clothes. And by the way, we do the same in the industry to show that we are on par with where we should be. And it's just a huge tick box exercise. But who is really investing to commit to do the hard yards, which is really, it's some hardcore dirty work to get AI to work, cleaning up your data, all this, right? So
it's a lack of people actually using and I guess operationalizing AI properly today. It's very few companies that do that. But if we do think about like Sweden and perhaps at least enterprises or perhaps public sector, can you think of someone that is starting to at least have some kind of maturity in terms of using data and AI? Or
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there are individual examples, even in government. I think it's Region Västra Götaland is very Halland also. I think are very good. compared to others. So it depends on sort of how they solve it locally. But in general, I would say that there is wouldn't you expect that now when we have how many, over 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, how many are infected worldwide, that we shouldn't have at least some tens of thousands full genomics and of the people, the complete antibody profiles, protein charting maps, and so on, so that we can actually put some of the heavyweight algorithms on work and try to see which people are at risk, what brings immunity, and so on. There's no guarantee that this will be an amazing result, but let's at least start with that, and that doesn't really exist.